The chandeliers of the Imperial Grand Hotel glowed like caged stars, suspended above a hall where marble gleamed, violins sang, and glasses of champagne sparkled in manicured hands. Every detail whispered wealth, exclusivity, power. Guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos laughed over delicate canapes, their chatter rising in waves of hollow sophistication. But beneath this dazzling facade of privilege, a storm was brewing. It would begin with arrogance, strike like a cruel lightning bolt, and end with a truth so piercing it would freeze every soul in that glittering room. This is the story of a spoiled millionaire's son, a pregnant woman with unshakable dignity, and the moment when hidden truth shattered pride. Her name was Clara. She moved quietly through the banquet hall, dressed not in silk, but in the plain uniform of hotel staff. Her apron stretched across the gentle curve of her pregnant belly, her weary hands balancing trays of crystal glasses and silver cutlery. To the wealthy, she was invisible, just another servant blending into the polished background. But behind her gentle eyes lived 1,000 unspoken stories. Life had not been kind to Clara. She worked long hours, scrubbing, polishing, and serving, all for the dream of giving her unborn child a life different from hers. A life free from hunger, shame, and struggle. Every night she whispered promises to the baby stirring inside her. You will know love. You will know dignity. You will never bow to cruelty. Though exhaustion etched itself into her bones, Clara walked with dignity. She did not let poverty steal her grace. But fate, cruel and merciless, had placed her directly in the path of arrogance that day. At the far end of the hall sat Adrian Hale, only son of hotel magnate Gregory Hale. Born into wealth, bathed in privilege, Adrian had never lifted a hand to work, never tasted struggle, never felt humility. From childhood, he had been told the world was his to command, and he believed it. Arrogance clung to him like his tailored Armani suit. Staff whispered about his cruelty, his tantrums, his entitled sneers. He was the type who broke things when displeased and blamed servants when bored. Tonight, he lounged in velvet chairs, sipping wine, laughing the loudest, mocking those around him with reckless pride. His father's guests chuckled at his jokes, some out of flattery, most out of fear. To Adrian, people like Clara were not human. They were tools, nameless, faceless, replaceable. And in a few moments, his arrogance would collide with her dignity in a way that would change everything. Clara approached his table, carrying a tray of crystal glasses filled with red wine. Her hands trembled under the weight, but her steps were steady. She was almost past Adrian when disaster struck. A guest chair scraped unexpectedly, forcing Clara to shift. A single drop of wine slipped over the rim of the glass and splashed near Adrian's cuff. Just one drop, barely visible. But for Adrian, it was enough. He looked at his sleeve, then at Clara, as if she had spit on his dignity. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened, and a hush fell over the immediate tables. "You clumsy nobody," he hissed. Clara froze, her face pale. I'm so sorry, sir." The apology had barely left her lips before Adrian acted. With sudden fury, he rose and lashed out. His polished shoe struck Clara across her swollen stomach. The tray slipped from her hands. Glasses shattered across the marble floor, like 1,000 screaming voices. Clara staggered, gasped, and fell back, clutching her belly in instinctive protection of the child within. A horrified silence swept the hall. "She's pregnant," someone whispered. "How could he?" Another gasped. Adrian stood there, sneering, brushing his cuff as though her very existence polluted him. "People like you should know your place," he spat. Clara's face was pale, her breath shallow, but she did not cry. She pulled herself upright with trembling hands, her eyes shimmering with defiance through pain. She would not let him see her break. And then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. The great doors opened, and every head turned. A man walked in, his presence so commanding that even the golden chandeliers seemed to dim. He wore no uniform now, just a simple shirt and worn boots. But his aura carried the weight of wars, the strength of survival, the authority of one who had faced death and returned. His name was Marcus Hale, Clara's husband, a decorated soldier, a man whose loyalty, honor, and courage had been written about in newspapers, celebrated in ceremonies, whispered with respect across the city. Marcus's eyes found Clara, trembling, clutching her belly, shards of glass around her feet. Something inside him snapped. He moved forward, not rushing, not shouting, but with a terrifying calm. Every step echoed like thunder. Adrian, so arrogant minutes before, suddenly felt his bravado falter. Marcus stopped in front of Adrian, positioning himself between the arrogant heir and his trembling wife. He didn't raise his fist. He didn't need to. He simply looked into Adrian's eyes. It was a gaze that carried the weight of every battlefield Marcus had survived, every comrade he had buried, every sacrifice he had made. A gaze so deep, so furious, so full of pain and restraint that Adrian, spoiled son of privilege, felt his chest tighten with fear. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt small. The hall was silent, suffocating. Whispers rippled. Marcus Hale? That's Clara's husband? The war hero? Guests who once admired Adrian now stared at him with disgust. The man they had mocked as invisible was married to a soldier whose name was etched into honor itself. Adrian swallowed hard, his arrogance cracking. Marcus's voice, when it finally came, was calm, but it cut sharper than any blade. "You strike a pregnant woman," he said softly, each word laced with steel. "Tell me, Adrian, what does that make you? A man or a coward?" Adrian's face flushed. His lips parted, but no words came. Clara reached for Marcus's arm, whispering, "I'm okay. The baby's okay." Tears glistened in her eyes, but her courage was unbroken. Marcus wrapped a protective arm around her, grounding his fury. Then he turned to the hall. "Listen well," he said, his voice calm but thunderous in its truth. "Wealth does not make you powerful. Money does not make you respected. And cruelty does not make you strong." He looked at Adrian. "Strength is standing when life breaks you. Strength is protecting the vulnerable. Strength is knowing the worth of a human soul." The words struck the guests like a blade of light cutting through glittering darkness. Adrian looked around, but found no support. Those who had once laughed at his arrogance now looked at him with shame, disappointment, even disgust. Even his father, Gregory Hale, sat frozen, his face pale as his empire trembled under the weight of his son's disgrace. Adrian stammered, "I didn't know she was—" Marcus's eyes burned into him. "You didn't care who she was." Adrian faltered. His arrogance collapsed entirely. The banquet ended in silence. Guests left whispering, carrying with them a story that would ripple through the city. Adrian's reputation crumbled overnight. No wealth, no luxury, no connections could shield him from the shame of striking a pregnant woman and being humbled by the truth of who her husband was. Clara, though shaken, became a quiet symbol of resilience. Her story spread as a reminder that dignity shines brightest in the darkest moments. And Marcus, though he never sought attention, became a living example of true strength, not because of medals, not because of titles, but because he showed the world that the greatest battle is not fought with weapons, but with integrity. Friends, arrogance will always crumble when faced with truth. Adrian believed his wealth gave him power. But that night he learned that kindness, courage, and integrity are worth more than any empire of marble and gold. Clara's dignity, Marcus's silent fury, and the truth of love between them shattered arrogance forever. So if this story touched your heart, remember, true strength is never in how high you stand above others. It is in how gently you lift those who have fallen. Friends, this was the story of the arrogant millionaire's son who struck a pregnant woman, and the truth about her husband that left him frozen. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope. Together, we can keep spreading stories that remind the world of compassion, dignity, and humanity.